Before we start, if you love stories that make you question everything you believe about family and justice, hit that like button right now and subscribe to the channel. This story will show you how a second envelope can completely change someone's life. And stay until the end because I guarantee you won't be able to stop listening. I never thought the most humiliating day of my life would also be the day I discovered who I really was. But sometimes life has these cruel ironies, and sometimes, just sometimes, it also has surprises that make up for years of pain. My name is Sarah. And I need to tell this story because I still can't believe what happened to me 3 weeks ago. You'll understand why. It all started at my grandmother's funeral. My mom's mother, Eleanor. She was 89 and had always been, how can I put this, complicated. One of those people who speaks their mind without any filter, you know? But with me, it was always different. She treated me with a coldness I never could understand. While my cousins were grandma's little angels, I was always the different one. The one who studied too much, who didn't quite fit in with the family, who had strange ideas. My mom always said it was because I looked too much like my dad, who died when I was 5, and that made Grandma uncomfortable. At the funeral, I was standing in the corner, watching my family. My aunts, uncles, cousins, all dressed in black, some crying, others already making plans for afterward. I wasn't crying. I couldn't. It wasn't hypocrisy on my part. I genuinely didn't feel that deep grief everyone expected me to feel. My cousin Jessica, who had always been the family favorite, came over and said, "Sarah, aren't you even going to pretend you're sad? Grandma may have been tough sometimes, but she loved you in her own way." I just smiled and said, "Jess, let's stop pretending. We both know Grandma never liked me, and that's okay, you know? Not everyone has to like everyone." She looked uncomfortable and walked away. But I saw in her eyes that she knew I was right. The service was long, full of praise for the family matriarch, the strong woman who raised 5 children alone. All true, but I couldn't stop thinking about how she always looked at me with that disguised disdain. After the cemetery, everyone gathered at Grandma's house, which now belonged to no one, right? My aunts, uncles, cousins, already eyeing the antique furniture, the china sets, the property that was worth good money in a neighborhood that had appreciated in value. I stood there watching this dance of hypocrisy. Everyone talking about how much they missed Grandma, how special she was, but I could see the calculating looks. My Uncle Robert was already measuring the living room with his eyes. Aunt Martha had already mentally claimed the jewelry she wanted, and there I was, knowing I wouldn't receive anything. I never received anything from Grandma anyway, not even a birthday card in the last 10 years. The family always made excuses. "Oh, you know how Grandma is," or "she's from a different generation," or my personal favorite, "she shows love differently." But I knew the truth. She didn't love me. Period. 3 days after the funeral, my mom called me. I was at my small apartment, grading papers. I'm a high school English teacher. Nothing glamorous, but I love what I do. When I saw her name on my phone, I almost didn't answer. Family conversations had been tense lately. "Sarah, honey, we need to talk about Grandma's will," she said, her voice sounding weird, strained. "What about it, Mom? We both know I'm not in it." "Well, That's what we thought too. But the lawyer wants everyone there, the whole family. He said it's important." I laughed, but it came out bitter. "Mom, seriously, you want me to sit there and watch everyone divide up Grandma's stuff while I get nothing? That's like rubbing salt in the wound." "Sarah, please, just come. For me." The way she said it made me pause. There was something in her voice I couldn't identify. Fear? Guilt? I wasn't sure. "Fine," I said, "but I'm not staying long, and I'm not pretending to be surprised when my name isn't called." The reading was scheduled for the following Tuesday at 2 p.m. at the law office of Henderson and Associates. Old Mr. Henderson had been the family lawyer for decades. I remember him from when I was a kid, a tall, thin man with kind eyes who always gave me peppermints when Mom took me to his office. That Tuesday, I dressed simply. Black pants, white blouse, nothing fancy. I wasn't trying to impress anyone. I arrived exactly on time and found the waiting room full of my relatives, the usual suspects, my 3 aunts, 2 uncles, and 4 cousins, all looking somber but with that underlying excitement people get when money's about to change hands. "Sarah!" my Aunt Linda called, sounding surprised. "I didn't know you were coming." "Mom asked me to be here," I said, taking a seat in the back. My cousin Michael whispered something to his brother that made them both smirk. I caught the word charity and felt my cheeks burn. Even at a will reading, they couldn't resist their little digs. Mr. Henderson's secretary, a woman who looked like she'd been there since the building was constructed, came out and said, "Mr. Henderson will see you all now." We filed into his office like mourners at a second funeral. The mahogany desk was imposing, covered with official-looking documents. Mr. Henderson, now in his 70s, stood up to greet us. His hair was completely white, but his eyes were still sharp. "Thank you all for coming," he said, his voice carrying the weight of decades of similar meetings. He gestured for us to sit. There weren't enough chairs, so I ended up standing near the back with my cousin David. Perfect. Even in death, Grandma was making sure I knew my place. "Eleanor's will is comprehensive," he said, adjusting his glasses. "She was very specific about her wishes." Mr. Henderson opened a manila folder and pulled out several pages of legal documents. The will was typed in that dense, formal language that makes everything sound more important than it probably is. I, Eleanor Margaret Whitmore, being of sound mind and body, and he began. And I zoned out for the first part, the standard legal mumbo-jumbo about assets and debts and executor responsibilities. But then he got to the good stuff. "To my daughter, Margaret, I leave my wedding ring and the sum of $15,000. Mom started crying, quiet tears, the kind that means something deep. "To my son, Robert, I leave my 1987 Buick and the sum of $10,000. Uncle Robert nodded solemnly, but I could see the disappointment in his eyes. He'd been hoping for more. "To my daughter Linda, I leave my china cabinet and its contents, along with the sum of $10,000. Aunt Linda looked pleased. She'd always coveted that china. "To my son James, I leave my father's pocket watch and the sum of $8,000. Uncle James touched his vest pocket unconsciously. He'd probably already planned where to keep that watch. "To my daughter Patricia, I leave my jewelry collection and the sum of $12,000. Aunt Patricia actually smiled. Grandma had some beautiful pieces. Then came the grandchildren. Jessica got $5,000 and Grandma's sewing machine. Michael got $3,000 and the grandfather clock. David got $4,000 and the dining room set. My cousin Amanda got $3,000 and Grandma's book collection. With each name called, I felt smaller, more invisible. The amounts weren't huge. Grandma wasn't rich, but it was the gesture that mattered, the acknowledgement, the final proof that you belonged. I was ready to leave. I'd heard enough. But as I started to move toward the door, something stopped me. It was the silence. Everyone was looking at Mr. Henderson, waiting. He said, "That concludes the monetary bequests and specific items. However, there is the matter of the house and the remaining estate. The house, the big prize. A 3-bedroom craftsman in a neighborhood that had gentrified beautifully, worth at least $400,000, maybe more. The house at 1247 Maple Street, along with all remaining assets, to be divided equally among my 4 surviving children, Margaret, Robert, Linda, James, and Patricia." Wait, that was 5 people, not 4. But he'd said 4. Before I could process this,
Uncle Robert spoke up. "Excuse me, Mr. Henderson, but you said 4 children. You named 5. Mr. Henderson looked confused for a moment, then glanced down at the will. "I'm sorry, you're absolutely right. Let me reread that section." He adjusted his glasses and read again. "To be divided equally among my 4 surviving children, Margaret, Robert, Linda, and James." Aunt Patricia gasped. "What? What about me?" "I'm sorry, Patricia. According to this document, you are not included in the house inheritance." The room erupted. Patricia started crying. Linda started arguing. Uncle Robert was demanding to see the will himself. And through all this chaos, I noticed something no one else did. Uncle Robert kept glancing at me, not with pity, not with the awkward embarrassment you'd expect, with something else. Like he was waiting for something. The arguing went on for about 10 minutes. Aunt Patricia was convinced there was a mistake. She kept saying, check again, she wouldn't leave me out of the house." But Uncle Robert was thorough. He read that section 3 times. Patricia wasn't included in the house inheritance. She got the jewelry and $12,000, but not the house. "This doesn't make sense," she kept saying. "Why would Mother leave me out?" Uncle Robert, ever the practical one, said, "Pat, you got the most cash and the jewelry. Maybe she thought that was fair." "Fair?" Patricia's voice was getting shrill. "The jewelry is worth maybe $8,000, and the house is worth 10 times that." While they argued, I stood there feeling like a ghost. Not one person had asked me how I felt about being completely excluded. Not one person had even acknowledged that I was in the room. It was like I'd never existed at all. That's when my cousin Michael decided to be helpful. "Well, at least now we know where we all stand," he said, looking straight at me. "Some people are family, and some people are just related."
His brother David snickered. "Right? I mean, it's not like it's a surprise." And then, this is the part that still makes my stomach turn. They started laughing. Not mean laugh, exactly. More like the kind of laughter that comes from relief. Like they'd been holding their breath, worried that maybe, just maybe, the weird granddaughter might get something. Jessica tried to shush them, but she was smiling too. "Guys, come on," she said, but her voice had no conviction. "What?" Michael said. "It's not like Sarah expected anything. Right, Sarah?" All eyes turned. I felt my face burning humiliation, but I kept my voice steady. "You're right," I said. "I didn't expect anything." "See?" David said. "No harm done." They went back to their argument about Patricia's exclusion from the house, and I made my decision. I was done. I was done with this family, done with their casual cruelty, done with pretending that blood makes people family. I started walking toward the door. "Sarah?" Mr. Henderson's voice stopped me. "Could you stay for just a moment longer?" I turned back. He was looking at me with those kind eyes I remembered from childhood. "I'm sorry," I said, "but I think I've heard enough." "Actually," he said, his voice gentle but firm, "I don't think you have." Something in his tone made everyone stop arguing. The room went quiet. Mr. Henderson walked over to his desk and opened a drawer. From it, he pulled out a second envelope. This one was smaller, cream-colored, and it had my name written on it in Grandma's handwriting. Eleanor left specific instructions. This envelope was only to be opened if certain conditions were met. My heart started pounding. What conditions? That you be present for the reading of the will, and that you stay until the end. The room was dead silent. Everyone was staring at the envelope like it might explode. "What's in it?" Her voice barely a whisper. Mr. Henderson looked at me. "Sarah, your grandmother left you a letter and some additional instructions." My hands were shaking the envelope. It was heavier than I expected, and I could feel something other than paper inside. Everyone was staring at me, and the room felt suffocating. Should I open it now?" I asked. "That's up to you, but I should mention that Eleanor specifically requested that if this envelope was opened, it be done in front of the family." I looked around. The same people who had been laughing at me minutes ago were now watching me with a mixture of curiosity and concern. Aunt Patricia had stopped crying. Uncle Robert was leaning forward in his chair. "Okay," I said. "I'll open it." I slid the flap under and pulled out 2 things, a folded letter
and a small brass key. The letter was written in Grandma's careful handwriting. Even at 89, she had beautiful penmanship. I unfolded it, and my hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold it steady. "Dear Sarah," I read aloud, my voice barely above a whisper. "If you are reading this, it means you came to the will reading, despite knowing you wouldn't inherit anything from the first document. That tells me something important about your character. I need to explain something to you, something I should have explained years ago, but didn't have the courage to do while I was alive. I treated you differently than the other grandchildren, and I know that hurt you. I know the family thinks it was because you reminded me of your father, but that's not the whole truth. The truth is more complicated, and it starts with a secret I've kept for 35 years. Sarah, your father was not your biological father." I stopped reading. The words blurred on the page. The room was spinning. "What?" my mom gasped. I looked up at her, and her face was white as paper. She looked like she was going to be sick. "Mom?" I said. "Keep reading," she whispered. I looked back at the letter, my hands shaking even harder now. "Your biological father was my son, Thomas. Thomas was my firstborn, born when I was 17. I gave him up for adoption because I was unmarried, and my family threatened to disown me. I never saw him again, but I never stopped loving him. When your mother, Margaret, brought you to meet me when you were just a baby, I knew immediately. You had Thomas's eyes, his smile, his stubborn chin. You were my son's daughter, which made you not just my granddaughter, but my great-granddaughter. I wanted to tell you, but Margaret begged me not to. She said it would complicate things, that it would hurt everyone. She said Thomas, your real father, had died in a car accident when you were 2, and that it was better to let sleeping dogs lie. So I kept the secret. But I couldn't help treating you differently. Every time I looked at you, I saw Thomas, and it broke my heart over and over again because I had failed him, and I was afraid I would fail you too. I was cold to you because I didn't trust myself to love you the way you deserved. I was afraid that if I let myself care too much, I would slip up and tell you the truth, and your mother would never forgive me. But you deserved better than that. You deserved to know who you really were." I stopped reading again. The room was completely silent, except for the sound of my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. "There's more," Mr. Henderson said gently. I looked back at the letter, my vision blurry with tears. I didn't even realize I was crying. "I know this is a lot to process, Sarah, and I'm sorry I wasn't brave enough to tell you when I was alive, but I want you to know that I am so proud of the woman you have become. You are kind, intelligent, strong, and independent. You got all the best parts of Thomas. That key you found in the envelope opens a safety deposit box at First National Bank, box 247. Inside, you'll find some things that belonged to your father, your real father. Photos, letters, and some other items I think you should have. But more importantly, you'll find the deed to a piece of property. Sarah, I own more than just the house on Maple Street. I own a cabin on Lake Morrison, about an hour north of town. It's been in our family for 3 generations, and it's where I went when I needed to think, to be alone, to be myself. I'm leaving it to you, all of it. The cabin, the 5 acres it sits on, and the boathouse. It's worth about as much as the house, maybe more, because it's waterfront property. But I'm not just leaving it to you because of its value. I'm leaving it to you because it's where your father loved to go as a child. Before I gave him up, we spent a summer there when he was 3. It was the happiest time of my life, and I think it was his too. I want you to have a place where you can be yourself, where you can think, where you can be free from the expectations and judgments of others. You've never quite fit in with this family, and now you know why. You're not really part of it the way they are, but you're something more. You're the bridge between the son I lost and the family I kept. You're the proof that love doesn't always follow the rules we think it should. I'm sorry I couldn't love you openly. I'm sorry I couldn't be the grandmother you deserved, but I hope this makes up for some of that. With all my love and regret, your great-grandmother, Eleanor. P.S. The family doesn't know about the cabin. I've been paying the taxes on it through a separate account. Mr. Henderson has all the paperwork. It's yours. Free and clear. I finished reading and looked up. The room was so quiet I could hear the clock ticking on Mr. Henderson's wall. My mom was crying now, really crying. Uncle Robert was staring at me like he'd never seen me before. The cousins who had been laughing at me were now looking at me with something that might have been respect. Is this real?" I asked Mr. Henderson. He nodded. "I have all the documentation. Your grandmother was very thorough. She had me do a property assessment last year. The cabin and land are worth approximately $380,000. Aunt Patricia made a choking sound. That's almost as much as the house. More, actually, Mr. Henderson said. The house is worth about $350,000. Waterfront property has appreciated significantly in the last few years. I looked at my mom. Did you know about the cabin? She shook her head. I knew about Thomas. I've carried that secret for 35 years, but I didn't know about the cabin. I didn't know she was leaving you anything. Why didn't you tell me about my real father? Because, she said, her voice broken, I thought I was protecting you. I thought if you knew, you'd feel different about the man who raised you. John loved you like his own daughter. He was your father in every way that mattered. But I had a right to know. Yes, she said, you did. I was wrong. The rest of the meeting was a blur. Mr. Henderson explained the legal details, gave me the bank information, and scheduled a time for me to go see the cabin. The family sat in stunned silence, trying to process what had just happened. As we all filed out of the office, the dynamic had completely shifted. I was no longer the outsider, the one who didn't belong. I was the one with the secret inheritance, the one who had been chosen for something special. My cousin Michael, who had been so smug earlier, actually apologized. Sarah, I'm sorry about what I said in there. I didn't know. You didn't know what? That I was a human being with feelings? That I deserved basic respect? You didn't need to know about the inheritance to treat me decently. He looked embarrassed. You're right. I was being a jerk. Yeah, I said. You were. Jessica came over too. Sarah, I'm happy for you. Really. Grandma obviously loved you more than any of us realized. She had a funny way of showing it, I said. Maybe that's the point. Maybe she was protecting you from us. I hadn't thought about it that way, but maybe she was right. Maybe Grandma knew exactly what this family was like, and she was trying to shield me from it. My mom waited until everyone else had left before she approached me. Sarah, can we talk? We went to a coffee shop across the street from the law office. It was one of those generic chain places, but it was quiet and private. We sat in a corner booth, and for a long time, neither of us said anything. I'm sorry, she finally said. I'm sorry I kept the truth from you. I'm sorry I let you think you didn't matter to Grandma. I'm sorry I let the family treat you like you were less than them. Why? I asked. Why did you let it happen? Because I was scared. I was scared that if you knew the truth, you'd want to know more about Thomas. And I was scared that if I stood up for you too much, Grandma would get angry and tell you herself, and then you'd hate me for lying. So you chose to let me think I was unloved instead? I thought I was protecting you. I thought if you knew you were different, you'd feel like you didn't belong anywhere. Mom, I already felt like I didn't belong. That's what you don't understand. I felt like an outsider my whole life. She reached across the table and took my hand. I know, and I'm sorry. I made the wrong choice. We sat there for a while, holding hands across the table. I wasn't ready to forgive her yet, but I wasn't ready to cut her out of my life either. Tell me about him, about Thomas. Her face softened. He was wonderful, kind, funny, smart. He was a teacher, like you. He taught history at the high school. He loved books and old movies and terrible jokes. He would have been so proud of you. How did you meet him? At a bookstore. He was looking for a book about World War II, and I was working there part-time when I was in college. We started talking about books, and 3 hours later, we were still talking. He asked me out, and I said yes, even though I usually didn't date customers. Did he know about me? He knew you existed, but he didn't know you were his. I was already dating your dad, John, when I found out I was pregnant. I thought it was John's baby at first. By the time I realized it wasn't, Thomas was already dead. How did he die? Car accident. Drunk driver hit him on his way home from work. He was only 24. I felt tears starting again. I wish I could have known him. I wish you could have too. But Sarah, John loved you. He chose to be your father every single day. That means something. I know. And I loved him too, but I still wish I had known the truth. We finished our coffee in silence, both of us lost in our own thoughts. Finally, my mom said, "Are you going to go see the cabin?" "Yeah, I think I need to. Do you want me to come with you?" I thought about it. No, I think I need to do this alone. 3 days later, I drove up to Lake Morrison. Mr. Henderson had given me detailed directions, and I'd looked at the property on Google Earth, but I still wasn't prepared for what I found. The cabin was beautiful, not rustic and run down like I had expected, but well-maintained and charming. It was a real log cabin, with a wraparound porch and flower boxes under the windows. I used the key to open the front door, and the smell hit me immediately. It wasn't musty or stale like I'd expected. It smelled like pine and wood polish and something else I couldn't identify, something that felt like home. The inside was cozy and comfortable. There was a fireplace with built-in bookshelves on either side, a kitchen with vintage appliances that looked like they'd been lovingly maintained, and a bedroom with a view of the lake. But what really got to me were the photos. There were pictures everywhere. Pictures of a little boy with dark hair and eyes just like mine. Pictures of a young woman who looked like my mom, holding that same little boy. Pictures of the three of them together, laughing and playing on the beach. I found more photos in a box on the mantel, dozens of them. The little boy growing up, learning to walk, playing in the sand, sleeping in the same bedroom where I was standing. At the bottom of the box, I found a letter addressed to me. Sarah, these are the only photos I have of your father as a child. I thought you should see where you came from. This cabin was his first home, and now it's yours. I hope you'll be happy here, Eleanor.
I sat down on the couch and cried, really cried, for the first time since Grandma died. I cried for the father I'd never known, for the great-grandmother who'd loved me but couldn't show it, for all the years I'd felt like I didn't belong anywhere. But I also cried with relief, because finally, I understood. I wasn't the odd one out. I wasn't the mistake. I was exactly where I was supposed to be. I spent the rest of the day exploring the property. The boathouse had a small sailboat in it, and there was a dock that extended into the lake. The water was clear and blue, and I could see fish swimming in the shallows. As the sun started to set, I sat on the dock and called my mom. "How is it?" she asked. "It's perfect," I said. "Mom, I think I want to move here." "Really? I can commute to work. It's only an hour. And I think I need to be here, to understand who I am." "I think that's a good idea," she said. "I think Thomas would have wanted that." That night, I slept in the cabin for the first time. I'd brought an overnight bag just in case, and I was glad I had. I lay in the bed where my father had slept as a child, looking out at the lake, and for the first time in my life, I felt like I was home. I'd been living at the cabin for 2 weeks when my family decided to stage an intervention. I should have seen it coming. I was sitting on the porch, reading and enjoying the morning sun, when 3 cars pulled up my driveway. Uncle Robert, Aunt Linda, and my cousins Michael and Jessica all got out, looking like they were on a mission. "Sarah," Aunt Linda called out, marching up to the porch like she owned the place. "We need to talk." I set down my book and looked at them. "About what?" "This," Uncle Robert said, gesturing at the cabin. "About you hiding out here like some kind of hermit." "I'm not hiding out. I'm living here. It's my home." "Sarah, be reasonable," Jessica said. "You can't just drop out of society because you inherited some property." "I haven't dropped out of society. I go to work. I pay my bills. I talk to my mom. I'm just living somewhere different." "But you're not talking to us," Michael said. "You haven't returned my calls." "That's because I don't want to talk to you," I said. "You made it pretty clear at the will reading how you felt about me." "Sarah, we're family," Aunt Linda said. "We need to work this out." "Do we?" I asked. "Because for 32 years, you've all made it very clear that I'm not really part of this family. Now that I have something valuable, suddenly I'm worth your attention." "That's not fair," Uncle Robert said. "Isn't it?" I stood up and looked at all of them. "Let me ask you something. How many of you called me on my birthday last year? How many of you invited me to Christmas dinner? How many of you have ever asked me about my life, my job, my dreams?" The silence was telling. "That's what I thought," I said. "You want to know the truth? I'm happier now than I've been in years. I'm living in a place where I feel like I belong, where I can be myself without judgment. Why would I want to go back to pretending that you all care about me?" "But we do care," Jessica said, and she sounded like she meant it. We didn't know how to show it. You didn't know how to show it because you didn't feel it. And that's okay. Not everyone has to like everyone. But don't come here now and pretend like you're worried about me. You're worried about the fact that I got something valuable and you can't control it." "Sarah, that's not true," Aunt Linda said.
Isn't it? Then why are you here? Why now? Why not last year when I was struggling to pay my student loans? Why not 5 years ago when I was going through my divorce? Why not ever until now? Uncle Robert shifted uncomfortably. We thought you liked being independent. I do like being independent. What I don't like is being ignored and then criticized when I choose to stay independent. So what are you saying? Michael asked. That you're done with all of us? I thought about it. I'm saying that I'm done pretending we're close when we're not. I'm done showing up to family events where I'm treated like an outsider. I'm done pretending that sharing DNA makes us family. But we are family, Jessica said. No, I said. We're relatives. There's a difference. They stayed for another hour, trying to convince me to come back to the family. But I could see what they were really worried about. They were worried that I'd developed a backbone, that I wouldn't be the quiet, accommodating Sarah who took whatever scraps of attention they threw my way. They were right to be worried. After they left, I called my mom and told her what happened. How do you feel about it? She asked. Good, I said. I feel good. For the first time in my life, I stood up for myself with them. I'm proud of you, she said. I should have done that years ago. It's not your job to fight my battles, Mom. It's my job. I know, but I should have supported you better. You can support me now by understanding that I'm not going back to the way things were. I understand, and I support you. 6 months later, I was sitting in the same spot on the porch where I'd confronted my family. But this time, I wasn't alone. My mom was there, along with 2 people I hadn't expected to see again. Jessica and my mom had driven up together. Jessica had been calling me every few weeks, not to argue or convince me to come back, but just to talk. Real conversations about real things. She'd told me about her job, her struggles with her marriage, her fears about having kids. I'd told her about my new life at the cabin, my writing, I'd started working on a novel, and my plans to maybe start tutoring kids from the lake community. I brought someone with me, Jessica said, looking nervous. I hope that's okay. Who? I asked. Me, said a voice from the car. My mom got out, and I smiled. She'd been coming to visit regularly, and we'd been rebuilding our relationship. It was different now, more honest, more equal. She'd stopped treating me like a child who needed protection and started treating me like an adult who deserved the truth. Actually, Jessica said, I brought someone else too. A third person got out of the car. It was a woman about my age, with dark hair and familiar eyes. Sarah, Jessica said. This is Amanda, Thomas's daughter. My heart stopped. What? He had another daughter, the woman said, walking toward me. I'm your half-sister. I stared at her. She did look like me. Same eyes, same stubborn chin that Grandma had mentioned in her letter. How did you find me? I asked. I've been looking for my father my whole life. I was adopted too, but I always knew my birth father's name was Thomas. When I finally tracked down Eleanor's address, I found out she had died. But the neighbors told me about the will reading, and Jessica reached out to me. I hope you don't mind, Jessica said. I thought you should know about each other. Amanda sat down on the porch steps, and I joined her. Tell me about yourself, I said. She's a nurse. She lives about 2 hours from here. I'm married, no kids yet. I've been searching for family my whole life, and when I found out about you, she paused. I hope we can be friends. I'd like that, I said. We spent the afternoon talking. Amanda told me about her adoptive family, her search for Thomas, her life as a nurse. I told her about the cabin, about learning the truth about our father, about the complicated relationship with our extended family. So you really cut them off? She asked. Not cut them off completely, but I stopped pretending that we were close when we weren't. I stopped accepting crumbs and being grateful for them. Good for you, Amanda said. I've always been jealous of people who had big families, but maybe I was wrong about that. Family isn't about blood. It's about who shows up for you. As the sun started to set, Jessica and Amanda prepared to leave. But before they went, Jessica pulled me aside. Sarah, I want to apologize. Really apologize. Not just for what happened at the will reading, but for years of treating you like you didn't matter. You deserved better from all of us. Thank you, I said. That means a lot.
I know you're happy here, she said, and I'm glad, but I hope we can have a real relationship now. Not the fake family stuff, but a real friendship. I'd like that too.
I said. After they left, my mom and I sat on the porch, watching the stars come out over the lake. "Are you happy?" she asked. "Yes," I said. "I really am." "Good. You deserve to be happy." "Mom, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Do you think Grandma planned all of this? The way she left me the cabin, the way she made sure I'd learn the truth about Thomas?" My mom was quiet for a long time. "I think," she said finally, "that your grandmother was a complicated woman who made some mistakes, but I think she loved you the best way she knew how, even if it meant keeping secrets and pushing me away, maybe especially because of that." My mom said, "Maybe she knew that if you grew up feeling like you belonged with the rest of the family, you'd never discover who you really were." I thought about that. "You think she was protecting me?" "I think she was giving you the greatest gift she could think of. Independence. The ability to choose your own family, your own path, your own life. That's a hell of a gift," I said. "Yes," my mom said, "it is." We sat in comfortable silence for a while, listening to the water lapping against the dock. "I'm gonna stay here," I said finally. "This is home now." "I know, and I'm proud of you for choosing what makes you happy, instead of what other people expect. I learned that from you, eventually." She laughed. Better late than never. The next morning after my mom left, I walked down to the dock and sat where I'd sat that first night. I thought about everything that had happened. The will reading, the laughter, the second envelope, the truth about my father, the confrontation with my family, meeting Amanda. 6 months ago, I'd been the family outsider, the one who didn't belong, the one who got nothing. Now I had a beautiful home, a new relationship with my mom, a sister I'd never known existed, and the possibility of real friendships with people who actually wanted to know me. But more than that, I had something I'd never had before, the knowledge that I was exactly where I was supposed to be. I pulled out my phone and called the high school where I taught. "Hi, Principal Martinez, it's Sarah. I wanted to talk to you about something." 20 minutes later, I'd arranged to transfer to the local high school. They needed an English teacher, and I needed to be here, in this place that my father had loved, in this home that my great-grandmother had saved for me. That evening, I started writing. Not lesson plans or grading, but the story I'd been carrying around for months. The story of a woman who discovered that sometimes the most painful rejections are actually the greatest gifts. I wrote about a will reading where they laughed when my name wasn't called, until the lawyer opened a second envelope. I wrote about learning that love doesn't always look like what we expect it to look like. I wrote about choosing your own family and finding your own home. And I wrote about the strange, beautiful truth that sometimes the people who seem to love us least are actually the ones who love us most. They just love us enough to let us find our own way home. As I wrote, I could almost hear my great-grandmother's voice. "You never quite fit in with this family. And now you know why. You're not really part of it the way they are, but you're something more." She was right. I was something more. I was free. 1 year later, I was back at Henderson and Associates. But this time, I was the one with the envelope. Amanda was with me, along with my mom and Jessica. We were there because I'd made a decision about the cabin. "Are you sure about this?" Mr. Henderson asked. "I'm sure," I said. He opened the document I'd brought him. "So you want to put the cabin in a trust?" "Yes. A trust that Amanda and I will manage together. We want to turn it into a retreat center for kids who are aging out of the foster care system, a place where they can come to figure out who they are and what they want to do with their lives." "That's a beautiful idea," Mr. Henderson said. "Your great-grandmother would be proud." "I think she would. She'd give me a place to find myself. I want to give that to other kids who need it." Amanda squeezed my hand. "We both do." As we left the law office, I thought about that day a year ago when I'd stood in the same building, feeling like I didn't belong anywhere. Now I knew the truth. I'd always belonged exactly where I was meant to be. I just had to learn to see it. The cabin was still my home. I still lived there, still taught at the local high school, still wrote in the evenings. But now it was also something more. It was a place where kids who felt like outsiders could come to discover that being different wasn't a flaw. It was a gift, just like my great-grandmother had tried to teach me all along. Sometimes love looks like rejection. Sometimes family means letting go. And sometimes the most painful moments of our lives are actually the beginning of our greatest adventures. I learned all of that from a second envelope and a woman who loved me enough to let me find my own way home. Thanks for listening to my story. If it resonated with you, please like this video and subscribe for more real-life stories. And remember, Sometimes the people who seem to care the least are actually the ones who care the most. They just love you enough to become who you're meant to be. See you in the next one.